expert, however you want to say that. I've been performing computer forensic investigations for probably like 10 years. So I've testified in federal court, state courts a few times, get deposed a lot, that sucks. Who in here practices digital forensics? All right, so can you do me a favor? Can you be my BS meter? So when people have case studies and I watch them, sometimes I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know, that sounds like crap to me. So if you sense that I'm your BS meter moves, throw the ball at me so everybody knows that I'm shooting everyone full of crap. Who here has leveraged digital forensics to solve some problem? Not incident response, just like civil litigation stuff. Anyone? Cool. So if you're looking for a digital forensics class that's going to make your eyes bleed, this is not it. This is not going to help you pass any certification exam. I'm just going to give the basics of digital forensics, but I used to give those types of talks, and what people, they like to hear stories. How did you leverage this? What problems did you solve? And so we'll go through the basics, but then I'm going to show you where each one of these are case studies that I've learned. Some of them are old, some of them are 4 or 5 years old, but the same things happen, it's just different people, and I'm too lazy to continue to redact information, so I just use the same stuff. We'll talk about digital forensics basics, we'll talk about how it works, what we're looking to accomplish, how we do things, and then we'll talk about case studies. And you'll ask yourself numerous times, seriously, they really did that? And then there's going to be some pro tips along the way. The pro tips are, don't do stupid things on computers, because we'll figure it out. What we do seems very complex and very difficult, and there is a level of complexity. It's not as hard as what we make it out to be. It's not like you see on CSI. It takes longer than an hour. We prefer to work in well-lit rooms, and we're just not nearly as attractive as those people. So it's real different than what you see there. And this isn't going to be boring for me. If it is for you, I'm sorry. At least you still get your CPs. All right, so some digital forensics basics. Oh, a little more. So I do a lot of incident response. I do a lot of civil litigation. We work a lot of cases. Trade secret theft is what I do a lot of. I do some high-stakes divorce. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee, if you can't tell. And so we don't do, Tennessee's a no-fault divorce state. So unless it's real high-stakes divorce, we're just a little bit expensive to get involved. So if it's child custody, or if there's a lot of money involved, and I have a couple of those cases that we'll go through, we don't do a lot. I do a lot of trade secret theft. I do a lot of spoliation of evidence. I do a lot of concealing. What are people doing? And many times we're actually appointed as neutral. There's not a lot of forensics people in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so I work, sometimes the courts will appoint us as a neutral to work for both sides, and that's kind of hard. So just some digital forensics basics. People think forensics is just recovering deleted information. It's not. There's so much more to it. I don't know that I've ever had one case that the smoking gun was something that someone deleted. It's activities. It's what they're doing. It's what they're trying to cover up. Yeah, sometimes the deleted information is important, but most of the time incident response is where I get the value of deleted information. We do keyword searching. It is boring, but it's extremely valuable when you're looking at an operating system that by default Windows 7 has about 800,000 files when you're trying to find what you're looking for. Digital communications, I used to call this email, but I have a 12 and 10-year-old. They have no idea what email is. So now it's just digital communications. Internet activities. We spend a lot of time analyzing internet activities. And I'm going to go through more of these in more depth. Pictures and movies. Yeah, pictures. We do a lot of mobile device forensics. So sometimes I just have to have the phone back like this because of the pictures that have been on the phone. File activities. We'll talk about the importance of timelining activities. External use, storage usage. Metadata and EXIF data. Most people know this now, but some people still don't when it comes to EXIF data. Application execution histories and anti-forensics is my favorite. I love it when someone's trying to hide something from me. Stuff we analyze, there's nothing earth-shattering here. Computers, servers, memory forensics, I'm beginning to do a lot more of that, even in civil litigation. So we do a lot of it in incident response. Mobile devices, truth is, I probably analyze more mobile devices now than I do computers. And that's a completely, I had some slides about mobile, but my talk's only 50 minutes and not 60, so I cut those out, but mobile's a completely different animal. It's different tools, it's a different methodology. Cloud storage, not necessarily the storage, but the interaction with the storage. Removable media is huge in trade secret theft. We do a lot with GPS devices, and I don't have a case study on GPS here, but we actually worked a case in which a tractor and trailer went the wrong way down a one-way street, hit someone head on and killed them. Well, his testimony was that he did not go down that way, or there was some type of confusion as to what happened, and the defense actually hired us, and we had their GPS device, and you have waypoints. And every few seconds it shows, and we showed that he did exactly what the police report said. So the defense attorney didn't like it, but we kept him from litigating something for a long time that he was going to lose. Watches and Fitbits. I've not analyzed a watch yet, but I saw a case with Fitbits in which when you have people that are drawing whether it's disability or something else, everyone's wearing Fitbits now. So you're drawing disability because you can't walk more than 100 feet, but you're wearing a Fitbit. Let me get my hands on that Fitbit and see what the Fitbit, so the Fitbit may tell on you. You're not supposed to be able to do certain things, but you're getting your 10,000 steps in a day. Something's kind of strange here. I've not worked that one, but I've seen that. So as an expert witness, this is as basic as digital forensics gets. I have to explain things to judges, juries, and attorneys. Any attorneys or judges in the room? Good. So attorneys are extremely smart until it comes to technology. They struggle with that. So I have to come up with analogies to teach them things. And so my goal is if my 12-year-old, which he's pretty smart, he gets it from his mother, if my 12-year-old can understand what I'm talking about, then a judge or a jury or the attorneys will. So this is the analogy that I use. So if you remember, to show how old I am, a long time ago when I went to the library and I wanted a book, I went to the card catalog system, the Dewey Decimal System. I pulled the card that pointed to the book on the shelf. That's how computers work. It's that simple. So when you delete a file, so for what it's worth, the delete key pretty much just entertains you. They had a key, they needed to name it something, they named it delete. The way delete works is the same thing that if someone were to take that card and delete it, there's still reference to it here, and the book is still on the shelf until someone puts a book in its place. That's how file systems work. So sticking with, thank you, sir. Sticking with Microsoft's file system, NTFS, it has the master file table. It has an entry in the master file table that points to the physical sector that the Word document exists on. So when you hit the delete button, all you're doing is removing that entry. So for a period of time, it's still going to be in the MFT table, and until another file overwrites it, it's still going to be on the hard drive. That's all the delete key does, because we're too lazy to wait for it to zero it out. So that's how we recover deleted information. Keyword searching. At any point, stop and ask me a question, or throw the ball if you feel necessary. Keyword searching. It is boring, but people store documents in places other than my docs. There's temporary documents. There's downloads. There's a lot of other places, and when you need to cull down 1 million documents to find things of interest, keyword searching works. So it's extremely valuable, but it's boring. So lots of times we're doing discovery and forensics. So the attorney says we want to know what they were doing, and then also we want all documents that have these terms. So we run the keywords, we index it. We use Access Data's FTK, which uses DT search, which Access Data is much better than index, in my opinion. So it indexes, it's very flexible, so we can do a lot of things and or not. The thing with the index that's kind of frustrating is there's certain noise characters, like a hyphen or a period or a dash. It does not index those, kind of like Google. So when I need to search for an IP address, that becomes a pain because it's not going to have that dot indexed. That's where I can do something for a proximity search. So I can do 192 within one word of 168, and I'm going to get that subnet. If I want plum within 5 words of pair, that's the proximity. You can do stemming and fuzzy and synonym. We don't do any criminal investigations. Sometimes we're hired as a consulting expert for the defense. We don't do child pornography, but we train and work with ICAC a lot, and they have word lists that for every case they issue. We have trade secret theft, so lots of times they know what they're looking for. Not the sexiest thing in forensics, but it's still important to help you get down to what you're looking for. So communications. Conventional email really doesn't, so we're looking at Outlook, we're looking at PSTs, we're looking at OSTs. That's getting a lot more difficult now that people are moving to Outlook 365. So now you just have an OST. So we're still looking at conventional emails. Webmail used to be extremely fruitful for us. Gmail, Hotmail, Ymail, all of those were awesome because it would cache the entire web page on the device. So and there's a case study later where I was able to recover hundreds of Yahoo Mail from the device because it's cached. Since they went to the JSON language, very little is left on the drive, and it's frustrating. I can see to and from and date. I can do timeline analysis and see maybe they accessed the file to upload it, but not nearly as much as what we used to get, and it's extremely frustrating. We do look at attachments. People still use their business email accounts to attach contact lists and sensitive files and send it to their Gmail account. I don't know why they do it. It doesn't bother me because it makes me successful, but they still do it. Social networking communications, Facebook messaging. This is huge for us, especially when we are working a divorce case. When you're using Facebook Messenger, it's caching all that to the drive in these little snippets. So we have scripts that'll pick all that up, put it in a spreadsheet, and put it in chronological order, and we'll have a case study on that. We'll talk text messaging a little bit later when it comes to mobile devices. No, actually, we'll talk about it now. So on mobile devices, there are very few things that are actually a text message. So who has an iPhone? All right, so when it's blue, that's not a text message. That's iCloud, or that's iMessage. When it's green, that's a text message. If it's WhatsApp, if it's all of these other third-party, those are not text messages. And what throws attorneys off, they're like, well, we'll just call the carrier and get those text messages. Well, first off, the carrier doesn't have the payload of the text messages. They have the metadata. And they only have the metadata for real text messages. So I've had to explain to them that that's not going to answer your question because text messages are really, there's not a lot of text messaging left. Internet history. So internet histories tell a story. It's phenomenal how much of an internet history tells a story just if you can look at someone's Google queries. And if you're interested in seeing this, you can actually, I won't dim out now because I don't have time and my free Wi-Fi's gone. But if you use Google, when you're logged in, it keeps all of your search queries. It keeps every video you're watching. It keeps everything that you're doing while you're logged into Google. And you can actually go look at search histories and you can see your search histories. And when you go back through that, I do that from time to time and you're like, yeah, I forgot about that. You know, if there's a health problem or if there's something I'm worried about or if there's something bad I plan on doing. Like if you remember, what was the young girl that was killed? Who was it?
Casey Anthony.
Casey Anthony. That is a great case as to how you have to be very careful. But that whole case hinged on those searches for whatever that was. The forensics platform didn't read it properly, but that's the only evidence they had was that search query for whatever that poison was. So Google keeps your search histories if you don't turn it off. We recover deleted internet histories, and it's trivial to do that with the right software. We don't do it by hand. We have software that does it. We don't care what browser you use. So we've seen where some people will use Internet Explorer to do their normal stuff, and then they'll switch over to Firefox to do different stuff, and then maybe they're going to use Chrome if they're going to search pornography, thinking, well, you know, I'm just using Internet Explorer. That's what we don't care. The forensic software we choose every browser, even CMonkey's on that list because the attackers use that for some reason. So we don't care what browser you're using. We're going to get it back. First case study, Facebook chat. So that slide's only twice. There was a suspected affair, and in doing this for 10 years, yes, sir. Yes.
I was just going to ask, is the history still there when you use the Firefox? It's not hidden. I don't use it that much.
Private browsing.
In private
yeah,
browsing?
private browsing.
Kind of. Not all of it's going to be there. It leaves little, like I call it shards of glass. You can pick up some of it, but you're not going to get all of it. But if it's in the index file, so in every browser has a different way of keeping the. When you delete your internet history, it doesn't even zero out that file. It just kind of deletes it and then starts a new one. So you can get that. But when you're in browsing mode, it's unlikely we're going to get all of it. But we see that you went into private browsing mode, which to me raises suspicion. So when I see that, I'm automatically going to a timeline and saying, all right, what are they doing and why? So there are legitimate reasons, I guess, to go into private browsing mode, but when I see that, I think something malicious may be about to happen. Good question. So there was a suspected affair. Dude called me, prospect called me, said, I think my wife is having an affair with someone from high school on Facebook. Imagine that. They met up on Facebook again. Tell me if you've heard this one before. So he says, all right, I want you to take a look at it. So for some reason, he tells her, I'm sending this off to a computer forensics company, and they're going to take a look at it. So what do you think she did? She goes right and clears the chat histories. Obviously, didn't have someone proof that. She cleared the chat histories from Facebook, not from the cache on the drive. Then she deleted her internet histories. I didn't care. I was still able to get back 282 chat messages, and it was exactly what he thought. That was just to that one person. And we were able to get all of the internet histories back, too. So it really doesn't matter if you delete the internet histories. In private browsing mode hurts. We'll talk about anti-forensics efforts, which is like a bull in a china shop. To me, is worse. We'll talk about that in a little bit, too. There are ways you can get around it, but most of the time, we're going to recover it or have a reason to suspect something's been going on. This is one of the most simple cases I've ever worked, and the attorney still tells this story every time she has the opportunity. So we were brought in for a workplace injury. There was a fall in a medical facility. And so the claim was a diminished quality of life. The claim was that she was having uncontrollable seizures, which is a diminished quality of life, obviously. Somehow we were able to, normally I have to create a very good case to be able to get someone's personal computer. Somehow the attorney was able to get it, and I analyzed it. So I went through and I'm looking at everything, and sometimes it's the simplest stuff. I spent days on this case trying to find something. On the internet research, she would research symptoms of her condition. We're all doctors now with WebMD, right? Anytime I've got a headache, I'm pretty sure I'm going to die. according to WebMD. She would do that, but working closely with the attorney, it's timing. She only did it about 3 or 4 times, and I asked about these dates, and she said, I know why. Those were days before her hearings. She would research the symptoms right before the hearings, and then she would demonstrate those symptoms during the hearings. So that was huge. Then she started looking at workers' compensation calculators. Yeah, if you're filing for workers' comp, you're going to be looking at that. This one, then she researches, what will computer forensics find? Well, let me tell you what it'll find. It'll find that you searched for that. There was one time that they actually searched for my name, and I'm in the forensics lab by myself, and it was just kind of freaky because building forensics. I'm like, oh my goodness. So we had that. That was pretty good. And then I started looking at it. I'm like, all right, just let me flip through the pictures. Flip through the pictures, and she went on vacation a few times. You can pull it together for the family. I get it. Your family wants to go on vacation, you're going to go. She was also going to the Orange and White game. Anyone here been to Neyland Stadium in Knoxville? All right, we can hold 102,000 people, and it's straight up and down. I won't even drink beer at the tailgate before the game because I'm afraid I can't get up the steps. It is that steep. In the Orange and White games, there's 20 or 30,000 people there. So it's hard to get up and down. I'm thinking, she's on the field. I'm like, all right. Then finally I run across a couple that my attorney can finally sink her teeth into. This is her. That's her type. So if you're a good defense attorney, 60 seconds real quick, how can you defend this? There was a bear. We had to jump in. The other kid jumped in, and we're going in after him. There's snakes. You may be able to get by that. Maybe the judge or the jury will say, all right, we'll let that one slide. Good luck with this one. That's her jumping off the bridge. And I know that bridge. That bridge that during this time of year is about 40 feet from the water. We won this case, and it didn't take some awesome CSI stuff. I just had to look at the pictures because people don't realize iPhone users, when you plug your computer in, when you plug your phone in to maybe do an update or something or sync up a playlist, if you don't do it over the air, it creates a backup of your phone to your computer. That's where stuff like this comes from, is people don't realize that it's there. We won that case. File activity is huge. So I was in one talk somewhere where they were talking about MAC addresses, or MAC, modified access and change. I'm going to take it a step further. So NTFS has what I call MAC-B. So there's modified, access, changed, and born. Born is extremely important because there's 2 types of metadata. There's file system metadata, and then there's application metadata. File system metadata is when a file is copied to that device. Application metadata says when that document was created or born. So you can have a document with a modified date that's before the creation date because of that. And it's hard to explain, but that's the born date. When was the document born, not when it was created. So we know when documents are created, modified, accessed, deleted, kind of. It's very difficult to know exactly when a file was deleted. We know that it's deleted, and we know when it was last accessed. You can opine and say it was deleted at that time, but I'm very conservative because I've been kicked in the teeth lots of times on the stand. Here's a good one. We know when documents are opened. When you double-click an icon to open a document, it creates something called a link file. And that link file, even without the document itself, I know when you open that document the first time, I know the last time, I know the size of the document, and I know where that document is located. Specifically, network share, USB drive. That can be huge. For instance, if someone turns in their resignation on September 20th, and on September 19th, I see that they opened customer list.xls from a USB drive. We need to go figure out what that USB drive is. So we know where that's coming from. External device usage. Again, none of this is, most of it's known to most people, but every time you plug in a USB device, we know every USB storage, we know mobile phones, we know anything you plug into that USB port tattoos that system with a lot of different artifacts. Event logs, registries. We know the first, we always, even with XP, we know the first and last time a device was used. And that can be key, as I showed when I show a couple case studies. Sometimes I know each time. Starting with Windows 7, it started putting things in the event log every time it was used. That's big, because now I know first time, every time, and last time. And sometimes I know how long. You can see when they plugged it in, and you can see when they unplugged it. And that's huge, can be key also. Model and serial number is huge when you're looking for a device. Here's an example that I'll do a case study on. So it was a discovery, very politically charged discovery matter in which, and I'm going to reference this case about 4 times because this dude screwed up everything he could have done. He ended up losing the case. It was thrown out because of what he did. Or actually it's settled because it was about to be thrown out. Asked for a bunch of documents with specific file names from the computers and all your media. We need this from discovery, and then we're also going to look and see if you did any hanky-panky. So you can see we know the vendor name, we know the product, we know the serial number, we know the drive letter that was associated with it. We know the first time, we know the last time, and we know the install date. That's a lot of pretty valuable information when you're piecing together a timeline. The link files that I was referencing you, where I told you about, this is that same cruiser drive. Everything that's redacted here was a file name with a keyword that he was supposed to provide during discovery. And if you've ever been in litigation, you don't muck with the discovery process because that's everything that's based on. And if you muck with the discovery process, you get sanctions or the case gets thrown out. All these file names were specific to what he was supposed to produce. So I knew that he has a USB drive, and I know the exact USB drive that has these files on that he didn't produce. That was huge in our favor. So let's talk about intellectual property theft. There's a fine line between intellectual property and trade secret, but this one was intellectual property. A little background. So a medical device manufacturer creates a device that not a lot of people do. Larger company in the same sector tried to buy them about 3 times. And each time they told them, no, we're not interested. So they hired their lead engineer that designed the product for the past 9 years, products. So the lead engineer left, went to work for the competitor that tried to buy them, and they called us. They were like, we're missing some emails from his email box to the manufacturer, and we need to get these back, and he deleted them. Can you get them? My answer was, yes, but your lead engineer went to work for the competition that's tried to buy you 3 times, and you're just worried about some deleted emails. Yep. Can I take a look around at some other stuff? Yeah, just don't spend too much money, which I hear every time. 12/22, he resigned from the company. On 12/02, not a big deal, but what I'm looking for is a change in behavior. Whether you realize it or not, every day you do the same things on your computer. When if I'm investigating a person, you set that baseline, they're doing the same things. When they start doing different things, you start to key in on that. 12/2, he Googled for is target company a good company to work for? Not a big deal, but I kind of note that. 12/10, he copied the projects folder from the network share to the desktop folder of his laptop. I know it's confusing. Laptop, desktop folder. Copied the projects folder down. Not a big deal. Huge deal. He had threatened to fire 2 people because he said, we will never make copies of our DWG designs. No SolidWorks files are to ever be a copy because if there's a copy, one of them is wrong. They sent the wrong design to a manufacturer one time that cost them tens of thousands of dollars. He just had a change in behavior. He copied down every one of those designs to his laptop when he told everyone else not to do that and to never remove them from the file share. So you can see copied down, you can see there's an X from the desktop and you can see the date that he copied it, and I'll explain the X here in just a minute. All right, 12/22 at 1:10, he powers the laptop on. He's an engineer. We all work late. He'd had this laptop 3 years and that thing had never been powered on past 9:30. Change of behavior. As the device powered on, it found a new USB device that it had never seen before. So you can see here, first time connected, December 22nd at 6:11. So this is UTC. If you offset at 5 hours for offset at 9 hours or 5 hours, you've got 111. I know the vendor, I know the product, and I know the serial number. What do you think's about to happen here? Powers it up, and then he moved the projects folder over to the USB drive. And I know he moved it because we timed it. When you turn the laptop off at 2:03, that's 50 minutes. When you move a file or a group of files, first you have to copy it and then you delete it. That's what the red X means. So we were able to recover all of those files and we were able to obtain like hardware and we timed it. It took 50 minutes to move it and then delete it. Still took us 4 years to win this case, but we ended up winning it. Application executions. So we know the first execution date and time of every application. We know the last execution date and time. We don't know the intervals. We know the first time and the last time. And we know how many times, but we can't see everything in between. We know how many times we know the user that executed the application. So Windows has something called prefetch, and what it tries to do from a binary perspective is to be more efficient. It loads a piece of it in a PDF file, and it keeps the last 128. So I know the last 128 programs, and then I can recover deleted PDF files that are rolled off and see more. That's for the entire system. But every ntUser.dat, which is a registry file for a user, also has something called user assist that has the same things. So we know what applications, when, and most of the time who did that. That can be huge in many instances. So let's start with what would be considered an easy trade secret theft. So this was a very high-profile PR organization in which one of their lead people, or one of their best people, resigned. Resigned on May 6th. So they contacted me immediately. Said, we're real worried because we know he wants to set up a competing business. We need to know what's going on. Looking through the Google queries. How do I link another email account to Gmail if that other account uses IMAP? Who sees what he's trying to do here? He's trying to synchronize his Outlook with his Gmail. So right here, I already know he's going to find a way to get this data. He's probably gotten it. I just need to figure it out. I found that he copied sensitive information to a USB drive, and I'll show what that was. Dropbox was installed on March 3rd of 2011, and then uninstalled on May 6th, right before he resigned. So I asked my client, I'm like, what's the significance of March 3rd? And she said, oh, I remember. That's the day that he got into an argument with the partners as to the direction of the PR firm. So as soon as that argument happened, he already had a plan, and he installed Dropbox. Then on his day, you can see here, he removed it. That's no big deal, where he uninstalled it. But the add remove stuff, the application execution, as I said, we know when you've executed something. I see on that date, on May 11th, at 12:13 p.m., he executed add remove. So he went into the add remove control panel and removed Dropbox. Trying to cover the tracks. Then on May 5th, which was the day before, first time connected, and then the install date, Kingston Data Traveler serial number, first time that device had ever been used. You can see what's about to happen here. He went into Outlook. So if you're a PR person, what has the most valuable information, either the CRM or Outlook? So what most people don't realize, he went into Outlook and exported the data. When you do that, it creates this map file on the local drive of what you're doing. So CSV of an ADR, which is the address book, the calendar, and then email, which is the email. So I know this is happening. How can I tie this to the USB drive I know he just plugged in? This map file has the path, the name, and what was exported. So and on the timeline, you can see it. Plug in the USB drive, export every bit of this stuff. So through this, we were able to get his home computer stuff. So we did the analysis of the home machine. That argument was real easy with the courts. I'm like, look, we've got this, this, and this. Give us the stuff. What he did, when he installed Dropbox, he started moving over the business secret stuff into Dropbox, syncing it up. He went home, installed Dropbox, and then it synced down to his home computer. Pretty good plan. The next day, after May 6th, when he went home, he had a different USB drive, copied all the stuff out of the Dropbox folder onto the USB drive, and then deleted Dropbox from his home computer. And then we obviously won this case. Metadata. So metadata is just information about information, but it can be extremely valuable given the right context. So for instance, we know when a file, this is mainly Office documents. Adobe, not so much. We know when a file was created, accessed. We can see some versions, we can see the past 10 authors of a document. Sometimes we can see if track changes is on. That's way back to like Word 2003, but sometimes we can see what those changes were because it doesn't scrub the document. Prior histories, editing histories, we know when a document's been printed. So even now, I can tell you the last time a document's been printed because it's a tag there. Email has email headers. Spreadsheets, what's awesome about spreadsheets is that if you just print a spreadsheet, you don't see the formulas and all of that. We've had cases in which the formula was the problem, not the results. Office documents, pictures, this isn't a surprise or anything, but pictures have, if you have location services turned on your phone and you take a picture, it has a lot of stuff, camera make, model, resolution, what were you doing. It also has altitude, longitude, and latitude of where you were standing when you took the picture. So this can be real handy in cases like divorce cases when someone's not supposed to be at a certain place. When they on the stand said, no, I've never been there, then we have a picture that says, yeah, you were because this came from your phone. And then also, we don't do skip tracing, but when someone's looking for a runaway, if you can get them to take a picture somehow and send it to you, sometimes you can get this. But it's kind of scary that there's that much info. One thing to keep in mind, when you upload your pictures to social media, they scrub this because they realize the implications of that. Here's a case study just on metadata. This was last year, I think. So, story, there was a teacher at Oak Ridge, which Oak Ridge, Tennessee is like the secret city. That's where we enrich uranium to blow stuff up. So he was a teacher there and allegedly had ran up some type of school credit card number. They found him dead, 3 counties away of shotgun wound to the head, and it was said it was a suicide. Well, his family was pretty well off, and they just would not let it die. No pun there. They wouldn't let it rest. They wanted to prove that they really need to open this case again. So there was a document that the wife had sent law enforcement that was named "To the Love of My Life," and it was supposed to be, a letter which he was claiming he was going to a suicide note. So this was in Knoxville News. Suicide note found on Alex Heitman's computer, created the afternoon before his death. Before he died, this document was created. It was revised 4 times after he died, according to the statement from the Heitman's parents. That was from my memo. According to the memo, including the parents' email to local media, Dean concluded the actual author of the document cannot be determined. The memo also stated the note was edited 4 times after Heitman died. So I was very conservative with this. This is simple right-click properties that put this thing to rest. You can see the document was created on July 24th called The Love of My Life. Here's the kicker. Any document on July 24th could have been renamed to that. That won't change the modified date of a document to change the file name. And I can see that it was modified on Tuesday, April 28th of 2015, 4 days before the document was given to me for analysis. The other thing is I was on the phone with her and she said, yeah, there's been a couple of times when I closed the document, it asked me if I wanted to save it. So I did. I hope that didn't mess anything up. And I'm like, why are you saying this when I haven't even looked at a document yet? So she knew this was coming. I don't think she did anything wrong. She just wanted the case to go away. Last saved file, that's who's ever signed on. So, it's a Mac. So if that auto signed on under his account, of course it's going to be created there. Revision number, so it had been revised 4 times. Revision 1 is the original. 4 times since that. So it kind of went away after that. But it's simple stuff like this that when you see a document's been modified before it's been given to you, it can be huge. All right, I've got to set the stage for this one. Smallest piece of evidence, this is that one case I was referring to. What happened here was there was a large company that was being sued by a real small competitor under what's called a ketom. Because the government was involved, a citizen can bring suit against a private party on behalf of the government and they get part of the, whatever the findings are, whatever the resolution is, they get part of that. So this dude had a small company that competed with this huge company and he files a ketom suit because they weren't doing right, supposedly weren't doing things right with the government. And it takes a lot of money to file suit. The assumption is he's being funded by someone else that also has vested interest that that company loses this lawsuit. This guy has a lot of money. So we're all thinking he's involved, but we haven't been able to tie him to it. So we got the computers, desktop, laptop, keyword searching, 5,000 docs. The first doc that the document that the attorney looked at, she called me and she said, I've never done this before, but this seems strange to me. I'm like, well, what is it? So she just looked at the properties. In an e-discovery platform, you see that. You don't have to do this, but the title of the document was a court filing that he had filed against them 6 weeks before. All right? The author of the document was the guy that we were suspecting. It was his wife. So he used his wife's computer to create a document to file against this company and gave it to him. So that tied him to the whole thing. It didn't solve the case, but it was kind of suspicious because they kept, even depositions and testimony, no, he has nothing to do with this. Yeah, he does. How else would that happen? So this is just more EXIF data. This is my favorite place. That's my driveway. The EXIF data, you can just click on a link, and it'll take you, this is demo. It'll show you an exact location as to where I live. And you're thinking, wow, you're going to tell everyone where you live? You've got Google. It's not real hard to figure out where I live. Anti-forensics efforts. So I love this one. This is any effort to conceal or destroy evidence. The overwhelming majority of the time, it looks like a bull in a china shop. Because you're going to see zeroed out files, you're going to see applications that are executed with names like CCleaner. So there's special programs, CCleaner, on the internet history. If you run CCleaner, I'm dead. If you run CCleaner, every artifact that I'm normally looking for, link files, jump lists, which is a new type of link file, internet histories, temporary files, it's all gone. I cannot get it back. But, yes, sir.
Similar to BleachBit.
BleachBit is another one. Bleach, clean. And so the truth is, the only way you really get rid of a file, truly get rid of it, is when you run these applications, it overwrites those sectors of the disk with zeros and ones. And you don't get it back after that. But
I believe the show Mr. Robot showed us how to get rid of a file.
Yes, Mr. Robot is very talented. The NSA is also very talented.
No, I'm talking about slamming it with a hammer and then burning it in an incinerator.
Yeah, but see, when the courts requested that, it's real hard to get around it. So that's, yes, you will not get it back when that happens. You can take it, shooting it's fun. There's a lot of fun ways to get rid of hard drives and phones. But When you have to produce something to the courts, you need to produce something that's not in pieces.
Yeah, true.
System utilities actually cause a lot of problems. Defrag is my nemesis because you have all these deleted files over here. Well, defrag's job is to reorganize the files on the disk, and it's going to overwrite those files that I want. Disk cleanup, obviously, is another one. So I bring this up because the same dude I've referenced a couple of times, I help write through preservation letters to the opposing side. So this one stated specifically, it is further ordered that entry of this order, dude will not engage in any activities that could potentially damage data that is stored on the computer hard drive. This would include installing any programs that limit or eradicate data normally captured during internet activity, and programs that alter or eliminate unallocated space, slack space, or the Windows registry file, or running utilities against the hard drive such as reformatting or defragging. Anyone want to guess what he did soon after he received this? Use this as a menu as to what he was going to do. I'm not kidding. I can't make this up. Desktop computer. So I told you, we know when applications are executed. Clean Manager. That is the Windows Disk Cleanup utility. He received the order, I think, on 9/15. It was either 9/15 or 9/20. That order went down, meaning it was signed in and given to him. Ran Clean Manager. 9/28. 9:30, actually, that's UTC, so that's like 4:30 in the afternoon. Then, on the desktop computer, ran defrag. First time, December 13th. Last time, December 25th. We showed up on December 27th to pick up the laptop and the desktop. 13th, 25th, ran it 6 times, because if once it's going to be good enough, I need to run it 5 more times. The judge loved this, by the way. And hey, if you're going to do it on the desktop, let's be consistent. Do it on the laptop also. Clean Manager, this one was Vista. This one was XP. Clean Manager, that's the disk cleanup. Ran that one time, 10/10, which is after he's been given the order not to do that. That's where the timeline comes in handy. Then he runs defrag 3 times. If that wasn't enough, we also said leave the internet histories alone. So he used Firefox. What he decided to do was to kill the internet histories, then leave about 2 hours worth of history. They'll never notice that. There's 2 hours of history. This happened 5 hours before we showed up to pick up the computers. So he deleted the histories. I didn't even try to recover it because why? He tried to delete it. And then got it back. So this is spoliation of evidence, and it didn't work out well. We finally won that case. This one, so everyone has that case that they're proud of, that you keep referring to. This was the 3rd forensics case I ever worked. I started on it in 2007, and it didn't finish until 2011. Get comfortable because this one's good. This one set precedent. So federal court set precedent that commercial spyware can be deemed wiretapping in civil court. So we have this young attorney, young attractive, tell me if you've heard something similar. Young attractive attorney marries established businessman. This is all public, and I'll give you the link. If you want something entertaining to read, this is it. So he owns a lumber yard that's large enough. He sells to the Home Depots and Lowe's. He's well established. So he had an issue with fidelity in the past. He has a couple of kids, and they have a habit of getting into trouble. So what she decided was that we really need to monitor these kids' activities on computers because, you know, kids get into a lot of trouble. There were 8 computers in his lumber yard office. They only installed it on 2, the 2 computers that he uses. She also had a prenup agreement in place that states, if you cheat on me, I take you to the cleaners. Anyone see where this one's going? What she did was every time an email went to him, it was automatically redirected to her Yahoo Mail account through Spectrasoft's eBlaster. They've relabeled that product because I was involved in like 6 lawsuits against them. So you can see this is one of the emails. It was rerouted to her. You can see eBlaster report. So this is the actual diagram that I put together for testimony. I was in court for a week on this case. The email would be sent to Roy, and I can disclose names because it's all public. The email would be sent to Roy Klum before it landed on the drive. And this is what was important because the term was contemporaneous with transmission. Before it landed on the drive, it redirected it to her. That made it wiretapping. What she would do is she would take emails from female business associates, and they were sent back to her. She would modify them to make it look like Roy was having an affair with them. She would copy the text off of the Yahoo Mail account, put it in a Word document, and then she planned to produce them in discovery. That's just the beginning. So that's what was happening there, and there's a link there. If you just search Klum v. Gum, it's an entertaining read. I analyzed 7 computers. Analyzed his computers, was able to get her computer based on some stuff. I recovered hundreds of Yahoo emails in full tact as to what was going on. Every email he had. I had a binder this thick. There were discrepancies in the emails being produced in Discovery. Here's what brought it all to light. It's a small lumber office, and it was Windows for Workgroups. She used that lumber yard as her law office from time to time. It was a weekend, and the admin assistant went home. What do people do when they go home? They shut their computers off. That computer was the print server for the company. So Crystal Golden walks in, plugs in a USB drive, says she's never seen a USB drive, opens 3 documents from that USB drive, because I could see them, and prints them, because Monday there's going to be a hearing. They didn't print because the computer was off. Admin assistant comes in on Monday morning, powers up the computer. Guess what spits out on the printer? Those 3 emails that she doctored. She takes them to Roy. Roy calls his very expensive, divorce attorney. Divorce attorney calls me, and I have the best case I've ever worked on in my life. It gets better. So she was producing false documents in Discovery, and she's an attorney. The Discovery process is sacred. In testimony, she stated, in deposition, I don't have a USB drive. I know she plugged in a USB drive when she tried to print those documents. Through this, I was able to get her laptop computer. The first thing I did was look for that USB drive. I knew the serial number and the model number, they matched. So I know that she'd been using that. We've got her on that one. Roy, which was my client, through this, and there's even more to it that I'm not going to get into, Roy kept saying, Bill, there was an antenuptial agreement that the one I filed was not filed with the courts. And I'm like, I don't know what an antenuptial agreement is, but we've got other stuff we need to worry about. He said, it's important because what I signed is not what was filed. This will never happen again. She was using Windows Works, MS Works, whatever that was. On the night that he signed the antenuptial agreement that would have cost him a lot of money, there were 2 of them copied, printed. One of them was the one that he signed. One of them is the one that was filed that had another paragraph that made her a very wealthy woman. In the temporary print streams, I was able to pull both of those out and show that they were printed. She had them sign it, and she changed the back page and filed it with the courts. She's still practicing law in the state of Tennessee. I'm sorry, she still has her law license. I don't think she's practicing. So it was an awesome case. It's that case law. If you just Google Klumb, K-L-U-M-B, v. Gone, there's a lot of good stuff. And it's like 42 pages on an opinion, but I enjoyed every minute of it, and I love telling the story. You want to ask a question?
I do.
Have that.
Linux.
Yes, sir.
Linux?
Was she using Linux? No.
No. What happens when your targets are using Linux?
I don't have as much. So there's a couple of files it depends on what I'm looking for. So when I'm looking for activities, commands enter, stuff like that, there is a hidden file in the root of each user that shows all the commands that they've entered. You're mainly looking at timeline stuff. Linux and OS X is not as fruitful from an activity perspective. You're looking at logs, and you're looking at a little bit of activity. You don't have the Windows registry. And that's where I'm getting a lot of this stuff from. So yeah, there's not as much there. Now, Linux from an IR side, yeah, we can be pretty successful there, but I don't think I've ever encountered a user that uses Linux. Yes, I did once, and it was a real pain in the butt. I found one cached web page is what they were looking for. But yeah, it's a pain. I don't enjoy Linux, or Mac, actually. And I'm a Mac user, and I can do it. I just know that the artifacts, it's not as fruitful, and I'm afraid I'm missing something.
So you're hoping that all bad guys stick with Windows?
Yeah, for the most part. It's worked so far. They're not bad guys. They just did bad things.
Okay,
no, we do.
okay.
So if I'm looking for pornography or things that they shouldn't be doing on the internet, I can still do the same internet analysis. I can still do keyword searching. I can still do timeline analysis. I just don't have the Windows registries that I need and pointers and stuff like that I have on Windows. It's just much more fruitful. Good question.
How about virtual machines?
If you really want to be a bad guy and get rid of something, and to where no one's going to find it, even Mr. Robot, have a virtual machine on your device. Power up the virtual machine, have a virtual machine, snap it, power up the device, do your bad stuff, revert to snapshot, unless it's going to
No records anywhere, huh?
There's a record that you reverted to snapshot, but there's not going to be anything there. Many times, if you get an inexperienced forensics analyst, he'll overlook the VM instances, especially if it's VirtualBox or one of the others. It's not VMware. They'll see it in prefetch or something like, what's that? I don't know. We'll just keep moving on. There's only been twice I've encountered that. I've not seen anyone do what I just described, but yeah, VMs can be a real.
I have a desktop with 40 gigs of RAM, and it's a repurposed
What are you doing?
server. Oh, it's a repurposed server.
Right. Test lab.
I'm sorry?
Like a test lab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in IT, so. But my question was going to be, you could create the virtual machine entirely in memory.
Yeah, but there's going to be, if the underlying OS, unless it's bare metal install with the SXI or something, if it's like a Windows VM, I'm going to see the pointer to that VM or the virtual file somewhere. Even on VMware, you're going to have to load that from, you can't keep a RAM disk there all the time. You're going to have to load it from somewhere that's persistent.
Maybe.
Unless I'm missing something.
Maybe.
The problem is that you're not. What are you going to keep? You don't have. You can't keep anything that way because every time you delete and revert to a snapshot, anything you've done is gone, and everything you've done, you've either done through Gmail or Yahoo.
Well, I'm not trying to figure out how to be your profession. I'm
Good
trying to understand. I'm trying to understand the limits of what you're doing.
Oh, there are limits. If you have someone that knows what they're doing, someone that does digital forensics, yeah, I mean, even if you take the prefetch stuff that I was telling you about, if you rename ccleaner.exe to notepad.exe, unless we're going to match up the hashes, we're probably not going to catch it. So yeah, there's different ways that you can get around it, but there's always going to be some slip up somewhere.
That's true.
Yeah, so it may be something very small, but there's going to be a slip up somewhere because you can't be that perfect all the time. You done beating me up? All right. This one's real quick. Government contractors, one guy, CFO, went to the computing company started beating them on all the bids, and we found that 2 days before he left, he uploaded the huge bid that they ended up losing. Like I said, I can't see what's in the cloud, but I can see the activity and the interactions with the cloud. This is a good one, and I'm about to run out of time, I'm sorry. Company owner split is a manufacturer of a device. They got into an argument, one went and started a competing company, and the other one stayed. And somehow the competing company, competing B, knew everything going on in company A. And, you know, the president's like, yeah, some people know bits and pieces of this, but I'm the only person that knows everything that he now knows. My office is done. So he called the former FBI agent, the guy swept the place, and the guy said, nothing here. I know a dude down in Knoxville. He may be able to help you. Send him your iPhone. Send me the iPhone. I found a couple of things, but nothing that was there. I said, send me your computer. So this was after some of my spyware, and I earned a reputation for being able to find commercial spyware. But what happened here is that once I got it, I started looking. I could see through user assist, someone ran ATW6. So quick Google, that's web watching. What's funny about that is on their website it stated, our spyware is so stealth not even the NSA can find it. Well, a dude works for me that was previously with the NSA, and I didn't even need him for this. So I took a DD image or the forensic image, converted it to a VM, put it in a sandbox, and I booted it up. First thing it did was reach out to data.webwatcherdata.com. So obviously they didn't audit the network communications. It was even HTTP, not even HTTPS. So I'm thinking, all right, it's active, it's there, I know what's going on. If I could just tie that to a person, we've got something. So just using Wireshark or Ethereum, whatever you want to call it at that time, I can see here, I have the account ID, I have the computer ID, and I have a login ID. Someone had to use a credit card number to do that. So I didn't have subpoena power. At that time, the FBI stepped in. I handed it to them. I don't know what happened with it, but I handed it to them. And I have a good relationship with the FBI, so I'm not poking fun, but I handed them this one on a silver platter. This is what I call the Triple Crown winner. So this dude, we talk about internet insider threats. This guy, this company's in California, this guy was fired from his company without them thinking it through. And we work to help people to have plans to get rid of your sole IT person. They didn't follow it and they didn't contact us. Well, what they did was they fired him. They disabled his AD account, reset the domain administrator account. They forgot about stuff like, I don't know, VPN, log me in. All his access was removed. On 124, 2.5 months later, I guess he's kind of ticked at this point, someone connected in through VPN, went straight to the domain controller, and started working on cracking passwords. I can't remember if it was off cracked or what it was. Then leaves. 125, someone comes back in and installs VNC, the VNC viewer. Because there were sensitive computers and CCTV systems that had VNC, so he starts remoting them. So this person knew exactly where they were going and what they were doing. Oh, and a guy got fired on 11/10 that knew all this stuff too. So began accessing sensitive computers on the CCTV. Most time retention on closed circuit recordings like a month. Theirs was 6 months. He went in and deleted certain frames. Sorry. Someone, he or she. Then he started accessing files like credit card info, employee eval, because this person hated his supervisor, that was his supervisor's name, clearance data. They shouldn't be storing clearance data anyway. But he starts accessing that. Bonus letters, credit card info, scan documents. He knows where all this, he or she knows where all this stuff is and starts accessing it. 220, someone connected back into the computer, recovered the passwords from the previous thing that was being used. We don't have subpoena power, so I don't know if all the IPs matched up. I know 2 of them did through the VPN logs. Then access used webmail from, they had a small business server. So you've got, everything is on that one server. You've got Exchange, AD, everything. Databases, that's what he or she was connected to. Used webmail to access the IT director's email and the purchasing manager. Based on the previous credit info that he found, he started placing online orders. You can see the online orders through the web cache. Then start searching for more credit card info, just so you can distribute the load. So when you do that little, even the file will search. When you search in Windows, the registry keeps that card, credit card. Realizes he's in trouble. He has this bright idea. So the operating system is on C. Everything else is on D. The database is Exchange. That's what brought us to their attention because he's like, I need to destroy the evidence. Format the hard drives. He wasn't real smart. You can't format a drive that you're logged into. So he was able to format the D drive and all the email. They were down for 2 weeks, but all these artifacts were left on the C drive. I don't know whatever happened with this one. They turned it over to the FBI also. Last one, which is a good one from a mobile perspective. As I mentioned, we get involved in high-stakes divorce. This one was high stakes. So there's a suspected affair with an executive. He goes on vacation with his family, and for some reason decides to use his son's iPad to continue a conversation with his mistress. So as soon as he logged in with his account and sent her that first message, it downloaded the entire thread to that iPad device. Son sees it, gives it to mom. Mom calls attorney, attorney calls me. Because everything's synced up. And so I didn't really have to spend a lot of time on this one to recover. As you can see, it's stuff here like, and this is her that he's talking to. I'm here, just text me when you get here and I'll come. I had to remove some of it because it's being recorded. You're incredible, it's just thinking about you. Then he's talking to his buddy. Was it the same girl? Agreed, fun, but eventually you realize you're not 25. Lots of fun. Probably bad because she's all of that. Pulled an all-nighter, but not in the office. Damn tired today. The game is fun, but very tired. Guess what he lost? Everything. Any questions on, hopefully at least one story was funny. Any questions? This is one of my favorite memes. I would like to present my client's internet search history from that evening. You've got Eli. Not this, Eli didn't do it, it just makes it funny. I'd rather just confess to the murder. I really appreciate y'all's time. Do you have any questions or comments? And you didn't throw the ball one time, which means I didn't BS you at all. I appreciate your time. Enjoy. Hopefully you win something, and I think there's free beer downstairs.